you just a little bit of a background on Morgan. She is a senior graphic designer with the Mississippi Department of Human Services since 2016. I am in awe of her expertise in layout design graphic materials or software. InDesign, Illustrator, Photoshop, Premiere Pro, Rush, WordPress, Lightroom, photography, and Microsoft Suite, to name a few. So congratulations, Morgan, for being the PRAM 2020 Emerging Practitioner. The second category is the Practitioner Award, and this person generally has a career that spans at least 5 to 15 years. The same categories are in place, and the award winner for this year is Robin Kennebrew. And I'll give you a little bit of the background. Yes, congratulations to Robin. I'll give you a little bit of her background. She is presently the development coordinator for the Mississippi Volunteer Lawyers Project, MVLP. And she talked about the fact that she wears a number of hats there. She is currently overseeing fundraising and grant writing, setting up and working with the legal clinic and public relations endeavors. Just a few of her kudos. She spearheaded development efforts that raised more than $100,000 this year, secured over $500,000 in grant funds, which will allow MVLP to start a new program to assist more Mississippians and receive funding to develop Mississippi's first pro bono mediation program. So congratulations again to Robin Kennebrew. The awards will be coming and presented at a later date.
Right, thank you, Bonnie, and congratulations, Morgan and Robin. Y'all will get those trophies. Sorry, it's a little bit different this year, but we're still glad to get to recognize y'all, and you will get your pretty plaques. So awesome job. So I have one more award to present, and that is our 2020 President's Award. I had a hard time choosing this because honestly, we really did have such an incredible board that despite our strange year and having to go completely different than the norm, really kept everything going and did an excellent job at that. But this person I chose because I felt like she went over and beyond in her duties, and on top of that was willing to step in and help other people in their roles as well as she could. You know, she just jumped in without a second thought before even being asked some of the time. And this will give away who it is, but she also performed all her tasks with excellence. She got our website updated, looking great. She also set things up so that for future chapters and boards, we had things set, working on our brand management, you know, updating so that the correct colors and fonts and things were logged, just that extra little bit of work to make sure that everything we had looks as professional and excellent as possible, and really did some amazing graphics for our meetings. And I just felt like she really put a lot of work in. So I'm excited to announce this year's 2020 President's Award to Sophie Wolf. So congratulations, Sophie. Much deserved. I told her more than once, she was definitely a huge help to me as well, jumping in and helping with some things. So, but we also did have an amazing board all the way around, and really have enjoyed working with everybody and look forward to another year on the board with all of you. So with that, I want to turn it over to Bill Moak, our Vice President of Programs for 2020, to introduce our speaker.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mary Margaret. The person that's going to be speaking to us today is no stranger, and she's a great friend to all of us and to the public relations profession. Patrice Guilfoyle. Patrice Guilfoyle, APR, has served as Communications Director of the Mississippi Department of Education since 2012. She earned the BA in Journalism at the University of Memphis and the MS in Public Relations and Corporate Communication at Mississippi College. She also earned the APR credential in 2012 and has served as the 2020 president of State PRAM State, and will return in that role this year. Thank you, Patrice, because it's because 2020, as it says on her bio here, because 2020 has become a de facto reason for a lot of stuff. She is, of course, a past president of PRAM Central, so she's known to many of us here. And Patrice was a former journalist, and she worked at the News Star newspaper in Monroe and the Clarion Ledger here in Jackson. And she has 16 years of experience in PR. And she's also served as the Associate Director of Media Relations at UMC. So please help me welcome Patrice Guilfoyle.
All right, thank you. I'm unmuting. Is my sound good?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, great. I'm using some new AirPods. So I'm trying to make sure everything works. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully I have that ability.
Got it.
I'm good?
Yep.
Awesome. So thank you all. I have so many friends and current colleagues and former colleagues, and Maddie, she was in the master's program with me at MC. So I'm glad you took some time out of your day. I'm really honored to hear me rattle on about a few things. I titled this Back to Better because we've heard the phrase back to normal so much, but I think we've been so fundamentally changed personally and as a country based on what happened over the last year. So I think we just have to grow and move forward from there. So let me get started here. So this is my daughter. She is Katie Rose Guilfoyle. I'm dubbing her now the notorious KRG. The photo on the left is her first day at Disney. And this was last March of 2020. We went there during spring break. Little did we know at the time, that's when the proverbial, you know what, was breaking loose. And so we were there the week before Disney closed for like significant period of time. And, you know, it was historic in nature. So the photo on the left of her is, she's just so full of hope and promise and joy and excitement. And then 5 days later, that's her on the right, coming home, 10 minutes in the car. I tell people this, ain't no tired like Disney tired. I mean, if you've ever taken a Disney vacation, you need a vacation after vacation, because you walk and you sweat and it's overstimulation and it's bone aching and it's complete depletion of energy. For me, this kind of is a good presentation of 2020. It was rough. So I want you to drop in the chat how you would describe 2020. I'll have to take a look at it once I get out of my presentation mode, but I'm really interested in hearing what you say about 2020. Let's see if I can take a look here. And author Glennon Doyle, who I have read some of her books, she described last year as a collective period, a national period of collective grief. Lives were lost, plans were upended and changed, fear moved in, anger was everywhere. We were challenged on every level, emotionally, physically, politically, mentally, professionally. I'm talking to the people who are on the front lines here and communicating for your organizations. We had multiple disasters. We had killer hornets. Who remembers the killer hornets? I feel like that just got lost somewhere. Social justice issues. We had the trauma of daily televised unrest. We had death. We saw death televised multiple times over the last year. Sadness and grief, unlike anything I've ever seen, and I'm sure any of you have ever seen. It was a lot, but I believe there is value in looking back, and we can learn some lessons from that. So let's just take a moment to reflect on last spring. Okay, when the crisis hit, We as communicators did what we did best. We went to work with our organizations, we crafted messages, we tried to find help for people, help for our employees, and meeting the needs of our customers or stakeholders. But by summer, we were starting to realize that what we thought was like, you know, a limited issue or a brief disruption in our lives turned out to be an extended stay from an unwelcome visitor. We had to reset everything. We had to make some long-range plans on how we're going to deal with this over the next year. We played whack-a-troll on social media. We made communication plans, threw them out, and by fall and early winter, we were crawling across the finish line by Christmas. We were so happy, I know I was, for Christmas to appear. And it's difficult to maintain that pace and deal with humans as fallible as they are, as we are, and not have that weigh on you. And this is just professionally. So imagine your personal lives or the personal lives of the employees that you work with. That's on top of what they're doing in their professional lives. So I say all that not to depress you, but to acknowledge that we just went through a lot. So we're having a collective session, a therapy session here right now for a few minutes to look back in time. But I believe that after that stressful year, it's okay to take the time to personally reflect, right? And I think there are some lessons learned, and I'm going to have some examples throughout this presentation. Be mindful of the time. Out this presentation of some national companies and organizations and firms that did some things right and some that did some things wrong over the last year, and how we can take those lessons learned and apply them in our profession. So first, I think we all know this, we all recognize this, but it's a nice reminder. I think it's the first and most important lesson to be learned. We saw several examples of the impact when this is followed and when it's not, and here are some examples. First, this guy, okay? Dishonesty, okay? I'm not getting into political conversations here, but based on what happened in the country on January 6th, it is important that we as professionals be impeccable with our word, to be trustworthy and ethical, and make sure that we check our sources before we share information on social. Check your sources, people. Now, can you imagine being this guy's communication officer when that story broke? I mean, Governor Newsom, the first point of this bullet is that we are put into positions of trust for our organizations, and we have a responsibility to our publics. But not only us as professionals to be honest and forthright, but our leadership needs to have that same role. And when they step out of bounds, it puts us in a tough position. It weakened his message of keeping the public safe because he didn't do what he says. And, you know, Jean has heard me say this before, a coworker, you can't just say what you do, you got to do what you say. And if those two don't match, you got a real problem in getting your message across efficiently. Next, you mess up. Everybody messes up. We all make mistakes. But it's what you do after the mistake that's made that's important. You got to apologize. If you do everything without simply saying you're sorry, it's incredible what I'm sorry does in a conversation. It's important. On January 4th, this is an example from H&R Block. They took to social media. Clients of H&R Block frustrated, they couldn't get their stimulus checks. Now, if you really want to tick off some people, mess with their money, right? You don't want to mess with people's money. And so they went to social media. And the solution, H&R Block, to their credit, provided some real-time updates and information for customers via social channels. They issued a press release that gave a longer explanation of what happened. It really wasn't their fault. It was the way the federal government, the IRS, funneled the payments to the organization that caused the problem. The release included clickable links to contact H&R Block, which is important because people want to be able to, some people want to talk to a person, no matter how many details you put out socially or on your website, people still want to talk to a human being. They also included pages where customers could find more information. Doug Hesney, who is executive vice president at a communications firm, He said, quote, "People remember how brands behave during times of crisis, and the pandemic is no different. The situation requires consistent communication to their customers, both a rationale for why the issue is occurring and offering a clear notification once it is resolved." And that's just basic good PR right there. Okay, Edelman. Who's heard of Edelman? Most of us have heard of Edelman. And you would think the world's largest PR firm might have a better grip, but apparently they did not. And this third bullet is for them. If you don't know, say so. You know, don't make any promises, especially at a time when everything is changing and everything is turning, as this last year had been. So the world's largest PR firm cut jobs less than 3 months after its CEO promised no COVID-related layoffs. Okay, so the CEO, Richard Edelman, he probably thought he was doing the right thing. I'm sure he did not intentionally to mislead people. But what happened is when you speak without knowing the facts or without taking some time to reflect and see the impact of the pandemic, backing off of the promise hurt, I'm sure, staffers. They had made plans. They may have refinanced their house. They may have bought a new car because their CEO reassured them that they were good. But when he had to walk it back, it caused unnecessary reputational fallout for Edelman. They're based in Chicago. And it suggested that the CEO can't be taken at his word. So imagine the impact, not only with your employees, but the companies or the clients you serve. So they've had to do some reputational repair since then. Second point, and we all know this, but it's important now more than ever, because I think this is going to be leading us for a significant period of time, particularly in light of people losing loved ones, being sick themselves, jobs being lost. This is going to have to be our way of moving through this country for a long period of time. So one of these companies is not like the other. Who remembers that Sesame Street thing? So one of these companies did not do what they should have done. And 3 others did the right thing. And that is being gracious with people. Because your employees are not just employees. They have families, they have lives, they have other considerations and stresses. So I tell you, if you had to guess, it's Tyson, okay? And you may have seen this in the news, but I wanted to share some things. Tyson is one of the country's largest meat suppliers. So it found itself under fire for several times during the pandemic for its failure of transparency, point number 1, safety, and empathy, which compassion and empathy to me go hand in hand. In April, Tyson Foods published an alarming full-page ad in the New York Times that declared the food supply chain, quote, is breaking, and made the case for its plants to remain open to feed families in America. How many remember that run on meat? I'm like, where are people putting this meat? I mean, you couldn't find chicken, you couldn't find ground beef. It was frustrating. And the ad warned that millions of pounds of meat would disappear and set in motion a spurt of meat panic buying. So they just panicked the public with this ill-timed, ill-informed ad in the New York Times. And of course, it just hit the wires and it went crazy. At the time, Tyson was already taking heat for reports that it failed to provide PPE, and we may have seen that in the news, for its workers at the start of the pandemic. And workers weren't clear whether they were to come into work while sick. In November, allegations emerged that Tyson managers at an Iowa plant, remember this, participated in a betting pool on how many employees would fall ill with COVID-19 after the family of a deceased employee filed a lawsuit. There was an investigation. So you got to think about what message is that company sending at a time when there's stress and chaos going on in the world. And it led to an investigation and ended up with 7 managers being fired. So let's look at the other end of the empathy case. You have Microsoft. Okay, Microsoft mandated early on that all their employees would work from home. A lot of companies did that, even companies in Mississippi. Uber said drivers who test positive for the virus or are asked to self-isolate by public health officials would get financial assistance for up to 2 weeks. Talk about, walking the talk, extending grace to people. Walmart announced store employees can be paid for up to 2 weeks while staying home. And if they need more time to recover from the virus, they'll receive additional pay immediately. So you can see here how even you don't have to work for a Fortune 500 company to realize that those who led with grace probably had better employee relations than those who did not. Okay, AstraZeneca, one of the makers of one of the, I guess, I don't know if it's 2 or 3 vaccines that we have now for COVID. When people are looking for stability and authoritative voice, you need to make sure that your company provides that or your organization provides that. They're looking for answers. So remember, we go back, if you don't know the answer, don't say you know the answer. Just say you don't know and you'll work on it and try to find an answer. But when you have it, they want you to be sure about the answer that you're providing. So AstraZeneca omitted key details in its vaccine announcement, which was a major problem when building trust in the efficacy and safety of the vaccine. This was only the biggest announcement in probably history from these pharmaceutical companies that were developing this vaccine. Well, when the company and the University of Oxford released preliminary results on their COVID-19 vaccine, they didn't mention the error that caused some trial participants to get half doses. Well, as it turned out, the half doses worked as well as the full dose. So why they will admit that, I don't know. Nor that promising results excluded data from older people. Predictably, AstraZeneca is now widely perceived as secretive and untrustworthy, even though they later came back and clarified all the information. Now, I can't imagine that any communications professional that works for AstraZeneca wouldn't have asked for all the information up front, and then that way you can release and be honest and transparent, particularly in light of something as large as a vaccine for the pandemic. So it was one of the worst rollouts of an announcement that's considered a major faux pas for a company. Whole Foods, okay. Oh, sorry, I think I went back to, well, there we go. Finally, live out the values you support. So Whole Foods has always been, touchy-feely, organic, the best, the high quality, and caring for their employees and the people they serve. They have a good reputation for that. But one thing they did is they made an early misstep. And the misstep was it suggested employees donate their sick days to each other. So in the chat, can you tell me why that would be considered a misstep? I mean, it seems good. It seems like that's a good thing to encourage your employees to watch out for one another. Well, I can tell you while you're discussing, if you're discussing, I hope you are, because I'm going to check when I get out of this presentation mode. The company failed to tell their employees what they were doing for them first, right? You're asking us to do something that you haven't told us what you're doing for us. What's in it for me, right? You want us to give up our sick days and share that, but the company, how are you taking care of me as an employee, not just what we're doing for each other as employees? So they went back and corrected that. They understood it because employees call them out on it. And that's another thing. When you're being dishonest or not following your values, people will call you out. It will get you canceled these days. There's no hiding. A cell phone within seconds can destroy the reputation of a company in no time flat. So you have to be careful when you roll out these ideas and suggestions. Finally, not finally, but third point, value diversity of thought and opinion. I think that was more evident this last year than ever before. Okay. I can't emphasize this first bullet enough, right? If everyone in your meeting about a major decision looks like you and thinks like you need to pull up more chairs to the table, right? You're not getting all the voices that need to be heard and the potential impact, because everybody brings a unique perspective to a situation. So if I'm making a decision that's going to impact a rural area of the state, but none of the people at this table, I mean, everybody at the table lives in a suburb in a nice house with a middle to upper class job, you don't know what that end result impact is. So if you have somebody from the area that's seated at the table when you make that decision, they can bring about some ideas and suggestions that you never considered. In the summer of social justice unrest, a lot of companies jumped on the bandwagon of diversity and inclusion, or I've seen diversity, equity, and inclusion, DI or DEI. We love an acronym, so one of those two. But after completing a social media campaign championing inclusion, some companies had some explaining to do, okay? Which brings me to the second bullet. Before you advocate for diversity, inclusion, equity, all these items, make sure you're doing what you want others to do. Make sure you're setting the example. One example is Weber Shandwick, another firm. They pledged and did an all-out social media campaign to boost diversity, equity, inclusion. We hear you, we're gonna do it. But then somebody on social called them out. They went on the company's website, looked at the board of directors, looked at the people in upper management and said, hey, you're not reflecting the values you say you do. There's a disconnect. And so when looking at the senior leadership, Weber Shandwick said, you're right. You got us. You called us out on it. And they issued a press release. And the headline was, on every level, is that people of color are grossly underrepresented in our agency. Wow, that's an admission, So you have to be careful, to check yourself before, somebody else checks you. Wendy Roundtree, a founder of Gerald Communications, wrote in a PR news article about this topic, quote, as communicators help organizations find the words to genuinely address what's taking place, toss the empty statements. Like, we're all in this together. Are we? It depends. Are we all in this together? I don't know. It depends on your perspective. It depends on whether you're able to stay at home and work, remotely, or if you have to be a frontline worker. So make sure you're being real with people. And she says, let's lead with sensitivity, honesty, and more important, say something real. Don't just say platitudes and feel-good statements. Be real with people. Finally, she asks, as I mentioned, for organizations to audit their actions before editing their words. I like that. I thought that was good. Finally, you can use what you've learned in 2020 to fuel 2021 personal development. Don't forget about yourself, right? Go back. Okay, this is one of my favorite all-time quotes, because it's so simple, but it's so true. And it pertains to life as well. You can overthink something, and you just, like, analysis of paralysis, or paralysis of analysis. I might have that backwards. Do something for yourself. I challenge you to set at least one goal. And I want you to drop in the chat what your one goal is for this year. And we are all each other's accountability partners on this, okay? We're going to call you out like the social media trolls if you do not do what you say you're going to do. So that could be something as simple as enhancing your PR skills. Take a class, do a webinar, go back to school if you so choose, earn a credential. I cannot say enough, and I think my colleagues who are fellow APRs can't say enough about going through the process of earning your accreditation. Some people say, well, why do I need that? You need that so that you can submit your knowledge and your skills and abilities and do that planning and the 4-step process that's included in that. It really forces you to enhance your strategic communication skills. Serve on your PRAM chapter. I mean, volunteer your time and your expertise. I mean, I'm sure PRAM Central could use some additional people to serve on the board. It would be helpful. And you could serve on the state PRAM board or SPRF, the Southern PR Federation. I encourage you to get involved in your profession and to volunteer your time and your talents. You will get out of this organization what you put into it. I firmly believe that. You will make friends and colleagues and people across the state once you get involved with PRAM, and it really does make a difference. Not only in career, hearing about jobs before they're open, but also just brushing up on your skills, people challenging you to step up and do what needs to be done. I also advise, and I'm trying to do more of that, is take care of yourself personally, whether that's running, practicing yoga, meditating, praying, whatever your thing is that helps you mellow out and de-stress, do that. I can't encourage that enough. That's important. And then finally get a mentor. You can get somebody to help you if you're at one level and you want to get to the next level. I am, always open for finding myself a mentor, somebody that's going to challenge me to go to the next level. So I encourage you to do that as well. And finally, this is my final quote. A friend of mine sent this. I don't know if she's on the call or not. She texted this to me at the height of the pandemic, and I just thought it was so good. And I don't like to read slides, but I will read this one in case somebody's just listening by phone. It says, "Life is amazing, and then it's awful. And then it's amazing again. And in between the amazing and the awful, it's ordinary and mundane and routine. Breathe in the amazing, hold on through the awful, and relax and exhale during the ordinary." That's just living, heartbreaking, soul healing, amazing, awful, ordinary life. And it's breathtakingly beautiful. So that is it. That's all I have. I was trying to keep it short and to the point. And if you have any questions, I am happy to take any questions or discuss anything further that you would like. There's my email address if you want to reach out to me. Also, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, so you can reach out to me there. And that's all I have to share. So I'm going back through these comments.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Patrice.
So I see in the comments, dumpster fire, that's interesting. And atrocious, that's cruel. Oh my goodness, that was cruel. Anxiety inducing, right? Yeah. Forgettable. Don't forget, there's lessons learned, so don't make it forgettable. Devastating. That's a bit weird to put it for a lot of people. A hot mess. Avalanche journey, roller coaster year. Yeah. So good. So are there any questions I can answer?
Yeah, I've got a question, Patrice. What for you at your workplace? What stands out as one of the biggest challenges that you had to deal with when the pandemic really began last March?
Oh my God! Jean, Corey, you can help me out with this, but I definitely think two. One, when schools shut down suddenly in March, all across the state, it was very difficult. It was a big transition. Nobody was prepared for that, right? We have pockets of the state that have great Wi-Fi, great access to technology, and other pockets of the state that did not. And so kids were all over the place as far as ability to learn. So helping districts, because I think one of the things we had to clarify is that people thought that the State Department of Ed has the power to shut down schools statewide. We do not. That's why you have local school boards and local superintendents, because you have local home rule. So that's why the department can't unilaterally shut down schools. Now, if there's a governor's order, executive order, that's what's used to guide us as far as school closures. But I think that was big. And then the decision on reopening schools in the fall. That again was left up to the districts. Some districts wanted to have full-on school based on their local leadership, and some districts wanted to go virtual or somewhere in between, you know, like have some classes in person, have some online. So I think all of that, particularly in light of making sure staff and teachers and students were safe, but also students got an education. We just can't shut down school for an entire year and not educate children for a year. We would never catch up. We would never get children caught up from that, right? And for a lot of kids, school is the safe place. School is the place where they get at least 2 meals during the day. It's a safe haven. Not every child lives in a safe home. So I think that was the biggest. Any other questions?
Patrice, how did your involvement in PRAM Central and PRAM State, like over the past year, how did that kind of help you in your work?
Well, you know, you can always learn from others, and there's nothing like, you know, shooting an email to somebody you've known through this organization to ask for advice, to run ideas by, picking up a phone and calling somebody that you trust and you value their opinions. I think that's important. I think having somebody commiserate with, having others who are going through the same thing is always helpful. To get that encouragement or a new way of thinking about something. To me, that's being part of this organization has helped with that. Let's see. Anything else?
Yeah, Patrice, it's just occurred to me. You're serving a second year as president on the PRAM State Board. Could you maybe give us a sense of what you and the rest of the state board are kind of focused on this year?
Yeah, we're going to continue, and you saw this last year, we're going to continue sharing this year all the chapter meetings. We send out an email to all the membership, so you have freedom to attend any chapter meeting virtually. We're going to continue that. We're also going to have a conference this year. It'll be a virtual conference, just to remain safe since the vaccine rollout is going so slowly. We're looking at the first week of May. You'll have more information about that around the conference. We're always looking for good speakers and sponsors, so I put a plug in for that. And we were having awards this year virtually as well. So we'll have opportunity for you to showcase your work. And I know you guys have done amazing work over this last year. You had no choice. Probably have a lot of crisis comms entered this year. Some good online or social media campaigns. I'm looking forward to seeing all your good work. So I encourage you to get recognition for all the hard work you do and enter the awards. You deserve that. And I'm trying to think, Matt, you were at the last meeting. I'm trying to think about as chapter presidents, they are part of the state PRAM board as well. So they
Yeah, I missed some of that last week's meeting. One thing I was wondering about, and this might not have been nailed down yet, was have y'all zeroed in on a deadline for awards entries this year?
Not yet. We just decided, we just had a vote as a board about, and you'll get information about, we're going to ship awards this year. So there'll be some information coming out about that. But the awards deadline, since we're not having the conference until early May virtually, it'll get pushed. It's not going to be as early as it normally is. But our awards chair is currently working on those details, so we'll get it.
And since you have the awards chair on the
Hey, Matt!
I thought that was you.
I was playing with some numbers yesterday. Look for stuff to come out around the 1st of February, the first week of February. It looks like, and this is not set in stone yet, but a final deadline around the 3rd week of March.
Okay. So you got a little time. You can already start working on it. Start working on your entry.
It's never too early to start.
That's good advice, Matt.
I had another question for you, Patrice. You are very up to date on PR news nationally, internationally. What are some of your news sources that you consult for PR news? Because there's so many countries this year.
There's so many things. Yeah. I'm a member of PRSA, so I get their newsletter. They still send out paper, guys. Their newsletter, and they have a lot of case studies and a lot of interesting articles in that. I also read PR news. And then, just reading news generally, a lot of those things dealing with companies are in your mainstream media. And sometimes I just pluck it and go, oh, yeah, that's a good thing to keep in mind. So, just read mainstream media a lot, and some of the organizations like PR News, Reagan Communications, sometimes they have good tips, and PRSA. Awesome. I can share this presentation with anybody that wants. I saw something in the chat about, can we send this out? I'll send it to Matt, and then he can decide how best he wants to do that.
And this meeting is also being recorded, and like previous meetings, we'll post it. Sophie, is it on our? I know it's on our Facebook. It's on our YouTube channel too, right?
Yeah, we should have it uploaded to YouTube later, and we'll make sure to put that on social media so people can view it.
Yeah, I see a lot of people going for their APR this year. Good, good. Mara will be on top of it. So, I'm not sure what's next. I know I have to swear in the officers, but.
So that is actually what we will have next.
Okay.
I was just gonna let you finish if you were still reading the comments to.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good stuff here. So I could do that, a lengthy time, but I want to make sure I'm within my time frame here. Working on a better way to measure earned media, yeah. Particularly in light of, any marketing budget cuts that's likely to happen for some organizations. So I can start whenever. I can pull up the list of officers here, if you're ready.
Okay, ready when you are.
So we are here to swear in the officers for 2021. Your PRAM Central board for 2021 is Matt Westerfield, APR President, Bill Moak, APR President-elect, Jean Cook, APR VP of Membership, Chantel Lott, VP of Communications, Sophie Wolf, VP of Programs, Robin Kennebrew, Treasurer, Kathy Dugan, Secretary, Mara Hartman, APR, Career Development, Bonnie Jackson, at-large member, and Mary Margaret Busby, APR, past president. As members of the Public Relations Association of Mississippi, a confidence has been placed in your integrity and ability by your election to these respective offices. Please raise your right hands and respond with yes as confirmation as I read the following. Are you willing to accept the office to which you have been elected?
Yes.
Yes.
Will you perform the duties of your elected position to the best of your abilities?
Yes.
Yes.
Will you, in all your actions, strive for the good of the Public Relations Association of Mississippi and the public relations profession?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, repeat after me. I will uphold and enforce
I will uphold and enforce
the association's constitution and bylaws,
the association's constitution and bylaws,
and will promote and support
and will promote and support
the purpose of the association,
the purpose of the association,
and follow the code of ethics
and follow the code of ethics
adopted by the association.
adopted by the association.
You may lower your hands. I now install each of you into the office to which you were elected. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrice.
Thank you.
Mary Margaret, is there anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up?
Just want to say thank you, Patrice, for sharing with us today. Thank you also for sharing that presentation afterward. And for everybody for being involved today. We appreciate y'all. Thank you for getting involved with our chapter. We're so happy to have so many of y'all rejoin us already, and we hope that the ones who haven't already joined will. I'm sure Jean will be getting on y'all about that. We also appreciate y'all's participation in today's meeting, and just for everybody staying with us despite us going to virtual. Just hang in there. We're still going to have continued more great speakers and more value to all of our members. So we're just really happy to still see so many people still joining us and being a part of this organization. And I am that's awesome with PRAM State. Y'all all kept the same positions, but I am happily passing the torch to Matt while I learn new.
Tried to convince her to serve another year.
Yeah, I figured I had enough newness for this year. So, but Matt will do an excellent job, as will everybody else. So I will turn it over to you, Matt.
Well, thank you, Mary Margaret. And that was you had an amazing year as president. Some very unique challenges, and even though in the chat I called 2020 a dumpster fire, it really, in many ways, it wasn't. I mean, there were a lot of good things in 2020, and as far as from a professional standpoint, 2020 really forced a lot of us to adapt to new ways of doing things, and so it was a year of growth. And I'm hoping that 2021 we can build on that growth and have a really great year. The chapter had a great year last year. All things considered, we were able to pivot quickly to virtual meetings that were still well attended. And I was happy to see a lot of attendance from other chapters as well. And thanks to Jean's work and the other board members, our membership increased in 2020. So I'm hopeful and optimistic for a good 2021. So with that, unless anybody has any announcements, I'll just say that the next chapter meeting will be Wednesday, February 24th. And the speaker will be Jenny Tate, Associate Director of Communications at the Southern University of Southern Mississippi. And her topic will be self-care for PR professionals. So be on the lookout for the invite for that. So unless there's any announcements, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank y'all so much.